Hello, thank you very much for having me today. My name is Shimada. I am the co-founder and CEO of Crowdonomic. And today I'll be sharing with you about equity-based crowdfunding. A little bit about ourselves. So our mission as a business is to empower entrepreneurs and empower innovation, right? How we do that is we position ourselves as a financial tech or fintech business offering a full portfolio of crowdfunding solutions, right? Within Southeast Asia, we are the largest locally originated platform, and where we compete with the international players from the US or UK, we win, right? We like to do a lot of innovative projects as well. So during the last 12 months, we've helped a telecom operator in Singapore launch a crowdfunding site, and have also helped launch a global social cause crowdfunding site based out of Singapore as well. Now, we also do a lot of things which are different, which is working with regulators, which is a new topic for a lot of the entrepreneurs here. And the reason for that is that equity-based crowdfunding involves securities, general advertisements, and changes in laws which are not available today. Now, a bit about myself, and I always like to talk about the team just because, as you'll realize through the conversation, we're unconventional in the sense that our role is to help you as a startup or entrepreneur raise funds. So we're not only a marketplace, but we also take on the function of connecting you with investors and also acting as a promoter of your offer as well, right? So Nicola and myself, Nicola is my co-founder, we bring about 30 years combined experience of financial technology investment background. So I used to work at a professional firm doing strategy investments. Then I moved on to the corporate side. I was based in Singapore. I was head of this Fortune 500 company strategy for Asia Pacific, doing strategy, innovation, investment projects across the region. I've been in Southeast Asia for more than a decade, as with my co-founder, so this is a region that I'm relatively familiar with. So let's get into the content now. If my clicker could actually perform the function that I bought it for. Good. So crowdfunding is about fundraising disruption. It's a complete change to how you do fundraising today. And crowdfunding, even if you're here for the first time today, the easiest way to understand it, it is online crowdsourcing of your venture financing needs. That's all you need to know about what crowdfunding is, right? Now, why crowdfunding or equity-based crowdfunding is so powerful and so talked about, and why regulators are getting excited about it, and entrepreneurs, investors are also getting excited, is because there's a secret sauce. The secret sauce has two flavors. One is giving you, an entrepreneur, the ability to use social media and the internet to advertise your offer. You are not allowed to do that today. From an investor point of view, it's amazing and exciting because it gives democratic access to investment opportunities, right? So what it does is it changes fundraising from something which is Stone Age, difficult and inefficient, to something which is still difficult, but you can do it in a very modernized way, right? Now, this is a topic not happening in the far shores of New York or Silicon Valley or Tokyo. This is very real and imminent for Malaysia, because for those of you following the news, you'll realize that the Securities Commission here is now at the steps of introducing equity-based crowdfunding, giving you, investors and entrepreneurs, the power to do this in Malaysia very soon. So let's talk a bit about what equity-based crowdfunding is, right? Why it's considered a game changer, and I'll talk about more tactical things at the end as well, right? So we're passionate as Crowdonomic about crowdfunding because we think that this is addressing the biggest issue you face as an entrepreneur, right? People will tell you that, look, it's about customer discovery, it's about MVP, it's about lean, and these are all true, right? But if I went across all the markets here in Asia, in Southeast Asia, and I did a statistical analysis and did research and surveys and so on to ask what your number one issue is, the result will be a resounding yes, that raising money is your number one obstacle to growth. Close to 40% of you, so everyone on this side of the room will say, raising money is the number one obstacle to making my business successful, right? And we want to solve that. So the way crowdfunding works conceptually, if you look at the left-hand side, is that you as an entrepreneur reach out to a virtual community of investors, right? The theory being that it's easier to raise a huge or significant amount of money at lower ticket size for multiple investors as opposed to going in for a home run with one or two. Right? The process is online driven and standardized. So if you come to an equity-based crowdfunding platform, you fill out a template. You don't need to think about which sections, how do I configure an offer and so on. You use a template, right? After that, you submit it to the platform. We will vet it. We will give you advice on how to improve the quality. Then it's published. When it's published is when the action happens. So that's when you use the full power that the law and regulations are given to you and use in terms of marketing it through online media, social media, web, and so on. Now, it's typically what's called an all or nothing approach, which means that when you launch an offer, you say, I want to raise 1 million ringgit within 60 days' time. That's your target. Investors will put in money into an escrow account. If the amount of money within the escrow account exceeds 1 million ringgit within that 60-day time, then it's considered a success and you get that money. If not, it's reversed back to the investor. So it's protection of both sides. Now, as I will stress time and time again during this conversation, equity-based crowdfunding is all about making use and making full leverage of the new powers which are given to you, right? So if you look on this slide, you'll see this kind of like hairy connected, like red dots, blue dots, and so on. That's a visualization of my LinkedIn connections. So the theory being that instead of going door to door, I've done fundraising before. What I did was I set up an Excel sheet, I identified 200 investors, and I pitched to about 120 of them over a 6 to 9 month span, and I did the same conversation over and over and over and over again, right, face to face. You're supposed to be able to accelerate that process by using social media to accelerate, build social proof and validation, and gain traction as investors see commitments coming in. They will build on that momentum. So why it's a game changer? So this is the best way that I could summarize a 50-page document from the government in terms of what are the things that you'll be allowed to do, right? So equity-based crowdfunding in Malaysia, again, it's real. This is a real possibility for you. Any corporation which is incorporated here as a private company can use equity-based crowdfunding. It doesn't matter if you're locally owned or you're foreign owned. You just need to be incorporated here. You can raise up to 3 million ringgit during a 12-month span or 5 million ringgit during the lifetime of your company. All right? The types of offers, you could do common, ordinary preference shares, but there just needs to be one single share type per offering. Fundraisers, it's all or nothing, like I mentioned before, right? And advertisements, you could use any tool which is available to you. It's online, social. If you have the budget to do a TV ad, you can run a TV ad as well, as long as it's pointing back to the platform, right? Investors can participate, so retail investors can put up to 50,000 ringgit per 12 months. Angel investors can put up to 500,000, and accredited investors or high net worth individuals can put in an unlimited amount of capital. Disclosure, so this is usually a concern for how much paperwork goes into this effort. So if you're raising under 300,000 ringgit, you don't need or you are not obligated to make any financial disclosures, right? But if you're raising more than 500,000, then you need to submit audited accounts to the platform for it to be published. Right? So just to draw the parallels and to give you a bit more reality in how it's different, today, you are not able to do general solicitation. General solicitation is to, again, on Facebook say, your business is X, I want to raise 1 million ringgit, and it's for 15% of my company. You are now allowed to do this, right? If you want to do general solicitation, you need to go and lodge a prospectus, or what's otherwise known as an IPO, right? If you want to get a prospectus exemption, then usually there's a cap on the amount of money you can raise, and also the people that you could do outreach to. Now, the surprising thing is, everything you've heard today, or the last few days, has probably been new tools, methodologies, and so on, which have been invented during the last few years, if not today. The surprising thing is, all the guidelines that, whether you're consciously or unconsciously following to do fundraising, have been rooted in laws which were basically originated more than 80 years ago, right? And this is an invisible handcuff that startups and entrepreneurs are bounded by and restricting your fundraising process. So what equity-based crowdfunding does, liberalization in terms of how you could do advertisements, full use of web and social tools, and using a templated and standard approach to do fundraising. Again, we're experts at our own business domain, right? Whether it's mobile apps, dating apps, or it's retail, F&B, consumer goods, we're masters of our own business, but in some cases, we're just not master class in terms of fundraising, in terms of valuations, financial modeling, and so on. So this is to help the process, right? We love crowdfunding because we think it's simpler, better, and faster, right? It's simpler because it's more efficient outreach. It's better. I think the world record right now over in Europe, where they're a bit more progressive in equity-based crowdfunding, is that one company managed to raise 8 million ringgit in 16-minute time, right? And it's faster because it's a standard templated approach, where usually the offer periods are 2 to 3 months, right? So it's shifting the convention where you're told time and time again that you need to do 6 to 9 months of hitting the pavement, do fundraising. It's challenging and changing that convention. For investors, this is better in terms of transparency and also diversification. It's transparent because all the investors can see what the actual interest in your offer is, right? When I was doing fundraising, I would be sitting down with an investor in Starbucks. The next day I go to Coffee Bean. The next day I go to Kopitiam, right? No one knows what the other conversations are, and they have to rely on me. I'm a relatively honest and transparent guy, so I would share all the things. But you could imagine the investors feel uncomfortable because it's a siloed conversation. It's diversified because instead of an investor saying that, look, I have 10,000 or 30,000 ringgit, do I need to do it one shot? No. They could use that now as not a one-shot investment, but think of it as a portfolio to invest as low as 5,000 ringgit or 10,000 ringgit, just because of the economics of the platform will allow investors to participate in that way. Now, the industry has come a long way in terms of addressing your concerns, right? So I've listed here some of the top concerns that I've heard, right? In terms of whether it's from investors or is it from entrepreneurs, right? So for investors, we've usually heard, wow, people are just going to raise 1 million ringgit and run off with it, right? Up until this day, we have no reported cases of fraud for equity-based crowdfunding. The reason being that we believe in the industry that it's the dynamics of crowdsourcing due diligence and the amount of scrutiny that you come under is a key point in fraud prevention. And the other thing is, you'll notice that if you really want to have a successful offer, you're leveraging all of your Facebook, LinkedIn connections. If you do fraud, you might as well move to another planet because everyone's going to know about it. The second is, this is my favorite, I'll be stuck with thousands of investors and I'll be fielding calls every day, right? Now, the way crowdfunding usually works is you'll have 2 types of investors, one who are putting in a significant amount, like 100,000, 200,000, and who are your strategic investors. These investors will be allowed, or you will be able to set it so that they can hold certificates in their own name, right? And they have direct participations. There are going to be massive other investors who are just looking for the next Facebook, Twitter, right? They're just looking for economic interest. They don't want to get involved in your board discussions. So for these platform operators like ourselves, we'll offer shareholding vehicles where minority investors can be rolled up into. So in theory, you should only be dealing with 2. One is a representative from the shareholding vehicle, and the second is your strategic investor. Competitors will steal all of my information. They will anyway, right? So the level of protection that the platform will offer, right, is disclosure. So you will be able to see each investor, information profile, see who's actually subscribing to your offer. You could decide whether you want to accept it or reject it, right? It's not like automatically buy and so on. And the last one is the market will be over-flooded with lots of dumb capital, right? And if that's the case, it's onerous on the startups to decide which capital you want to take. This is not something which is going to be forced on you. It is a choice that you're given. So how does it actually work? When you go to a platform, each entrepreneur will be given a dedicated page where you talk about your business and your offer, right? So usually that the business would be, you talk about your video, you do a business write-up to explain your business, and then you attach several documents which are related to financials. I will, by the end of this presentation, master my clicker. Just give me, I promise, okay. Okay, so there are 3 key points in terms of configuring this: content, visual, and also team, right? So let's start off with content. The purpose of the content is to build credibility and generate some sense of excitement. So in that content that you're filling out in the template or in the documents that you're attaching, you should be talking about the credibility of the team, the board, the advisory panel, and so on, to give confidence that you have the right talent in your team to execute against your vision. You should talk about clear milestones, how you have achieved them, and how you will plan to achieve them. And also talk about any kind of like trademark or IP or intangible assets that you have, right? And also commercial assets in terms of partnerships that you might have as well. And you realize that actually a lot of these components are already asked of you from VCs or angel investors as you do traditional fundraising today. And you would do attachments of business plans, investor pitches, decks, P&L. You could attach whatever you want. Visual, right? Visual plays a key role in successful equities crowdfunding campaigns. And the key here is to do the following: sell the vision and dream, ground the business plan, nail the delivery, and form is important as content, meaning say that make it beautiful, don't make it ugly. Right? The don'ts are, and I'll stress this over and over again, don't be vague, don't be awkward, don't be boring, and don't show only the product. People also want to know the team behind the product. So I'll show you an example of a video. Oh, okay, well. And this is a UK-based firm which actually did crowdfunding. I think they managed to raise a few $100,000.
You bravely ventured out in the middle of the day to run some errands, except you're starving. You're desperately resisting the urge to settle for an average chain, except you don't know any other alternatives nearby.
No problem. The TSL app has 3 places nearby that are going to give you exactly what you want.
Chains and big businesses are great, but at the end of the day, what you want is to experience a city. And that goes with the people who make that city tick.
Hi, my name's Tom Elliott. I run Pizza Pilgrims on Dean Street in Soho with my brother James.
Hi, my name's Danilo. It's my father, Giovanni. We run HD Harris Delicatessen, 41 Great Digital Street. I started with my grandfather about 45 years ago.
My name is Chris Ward and I am the owner and director of Huckle the Bar Lab in Shoreditch. We want to pack as much luxury things into the service and the...
Okay, so I heard about 10% of that. I assume that you guys heard less. So what it's saying is that it almost feels like a TV commercial for your business, right? And what it's basically saying is that, look, you know, we're a business. We see a need in location-based services and information. We have all these great businesses, which are SMEs, which, you know, we want to connect in a more efficient way, right? But it's going through a story from the market need to the co-founders talking about it, giving customer testimonials in terms of SMEs which are benefiting it, right? And how different from that is a pitch video that you use maybe, you know, at a demo day every 1 year, right? Or the consistent, frequent fundraising you need to do, which you don't have a chance to show these videos. It's like offline, you sit down, you go through PowerPoint slides. So it is about capturing the imagination of investors, but doing it in a smart way where you're appealing to their investor appetite. Team. Team is completely going to be different from how you think about fundraising today. It will become more of a structured and inclusive and participatory exercise compared to today, where it's probably most of the co-founders, or for those guys who are lucky and big enough, the CFO, right? So there are 4 roles, which maybe 1 or 2 people can do, or 4 people can take on. One is your spokesperson, usually your CEO or founder, who's basically the spokesperson doing the actual direct interaction and also being the ambassador for the brand. The second, which doesn't play a role today but will play a pivotal role, is your marketer. And your marketer will be responsible for social media updates, updating your website, updating content, and also answering inquiries as well. If you see in the equity or non-equity crowdfunding world, you'll see that response times are critical. People will be asking questions about your business every minute of the day, whether you're in Europe, US, they don't care. They want to have questions within their time zones. So usually you'll see people who will dedicate someone 24 hours and maybe do 2 shifts over 2 people to make sure that they're responding to inquiries in a very efficient way. Third is content development, to build engaging content. If it's boring, it will not be distributed, and you will not be able to enjoy the virality that equity-based crowdfunding offers. And lastly is the numbers, guys, to make sure that the offer and the fundraising is proceeding at a velocity that you will reach your target. Okay, so at this point, you should be clear on the general template, the content which needs to be filled. You've told your team that you're the marketer, you're the content developer, right? You're the numbers guy, and I'm the spokesperson. You've got that in place, and you have your marketing. Now it's time to execute. And I will tell you that the inclination for most of you will be to do the following. Click awkwardly on the stage. Okay, here it is. Okay. You will stop. You will sit on the beach because it's such a brilliant idea that if it's on the website, if it's on Facebook, people will flock to invest money, right? Maybe 1 out of a few thousand will happen that way, but this is really when the activities or games must begin, right? Don't do this. The reason is it's also statistically proven that for many different variants of crowdfunding, if you reach 30% of your target within the first 3 days, you have 80% chance of reaching your target, right? Initial momentum is key. And the point is, it's all about human psychology, right? Okay, so I'm dealing today with a very young audience. The other day was a bit higher, so it was a hard analogy. If you go to a club or a disco or a bar or a place of social entertainment or something like that, and you saw that the floor was empty, it's very hard for you to be the first one out there to participate in a very engaging and visible way, right? And it's what we call the dance floor theory. On the other hand, if you actually see a floor which is full, buzzy, and so on, you will gyrate towards the crowd because you're interested, and it will be a lot more easier for you to participate as well, right? So that initial momentum is key to crowdfunding success, right? To do this, it's a dual role. We do our bit as well, right? So as platform operators, we will not only help you configure your offer, but we will help market it as well, right? You'll go through our blogs, you'll go through our emails, you'll go through our newsletters, you'll go through offline events that we might do, right? To make sure that we're doing our best to make sure that your offer is getting the eyeballs, the visibility, and the traction that it deserves, right? But it needs to be a dual process, and that's why we need the marketers as well, right? So the blue box is what you're expected to do. You're expected to post it on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, blogs, newsletters, emails, and so on. And the point is not to do everything because it's crazy and fun. It's because this is the way we should have been doing it for the last decade or so when these tools were available. It's just that you weren't able to do it. This is the way businesses are being built, and this is the way that financing and fundraising should be done as well. And you should have a content and media, marketing, activity plan for the duration of your offer period to make sure that you're doing these things. So I think the last few slides, go back. Okay, some tips, right? You will see that crowdfunding campaigns are picked up on a weekly or bi-weekly basis by major media. Only go out, right? You'll go through our blogs, you'll go through our emails, you'll go through our newsletters, you'll go through offline events that we might do, right? To make sure that we're doing our best to make sure that your offer is getting the eyeballs, the visibility, and the traction that it deserves, right? But it needs to be a dual process, and that's why we need the marketers as well, right? So the blue box is what you're expected to do. You're expected to post it on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, blogs, newsletters, emails, and so on. And the point is not to do everything because it's crazy and fun. It's because this is the way we should have been doing it for the last decade or so when these tools were available. It's just that you weren't able to do it. This is the way businesses are being built, and this is the way that financing and fundraising should be done as well. And you should have a content and media, marketing, activity plan for the duration of your offer period to make sure that you're doing these things. So I think the last few slides, go back. Okay, some tips, right? You will see that crowdfunding campaigns are picked up on a weekly or bi-weekly basis by major media. Only go out and pitch to them once you have initial traction because you don't want people flocking to your site when the amount of money raised is zero, right? Two is, even if it feels very like inhuman and distant using internet, web, etc., be human, thank people for their interaction and contributions. Thirdly, prepare follow-up videos, okay? That video is probably one out of a series of videos in terms of updates, in terms of progress you're making, right? Now, and you should be able to relate to this. When I was doing fundraising, I would meet an investor. Every time I meet them, they would ask, so what's new, what's happening, right? And it was always up to you to make sure that the actual business was moving at a momentum, that you had new news to share every day. It's the same psychology, have updates. And be quick to respond. I've seen over the last 1 month, 2 or 3 crowdfunding campaigns which have done absolutely brilliantly because of the quick follow-ups, and 2 or 3 disastrous ones because it just spiraled out of control because the startup was not responding. So just to summarize, equity-based crowdfunding, right? It's taking fundraising, which is a difficult and inefficient process, and changing that to something which is new, modernized, still difficult, but should be more efficient. This is not a complete replacement for venture capital and angel investments. It can be used in complement. You could have your angel investor lead a round and top up to retail investors, and the same with venture capitals as well. Secret sauce, remember, because this is understanding this and harnessing the power is going to be the difference between success and failure. Is one, social media, using the power for distribution, and the other is for investors, democratic participation. Promote, market, and execute, make full use of this new freedom. And Malaysia, right, this is not only a theoretical class. This will happen within the next few months. You guys should be proud that Malaysia is a pioneer market, and you should be making full use of this new freedom. Thank you. So I guess we have time, or am I going to be? Yeah, okay, so let's take some questions. Any question is a good question, as long as it's not hard or criticizing me or.
I have a question.
Yes, please. You should use the mic, yeah.
Okay, sorry. So this is very new to me, and the question I have is, you see, it's like an IPO without calling it an IPO because it's available to the public, so to speak, right? And wouldn't the complexities of, say, the stock market come into play? For example, will the initial investors have a say in how the startup is being run? Like, for example, if I don't like how things are doing after I've invested 6 months down the road, can I sell my thing to someone else? Is there a platform for that? And so on and so forth, the complexities of the stock market. So how does Crowdonomics address that? Or is there something in that 50-page document that already addresses this and we're not aware of?
Right. So 3 things. Number 1, for the amount of money raised, so in Malaysia, you could raise up to 3 million ringgit during 12 months or 5 million over, right? For that cap, it's supposed to be better than the IPO. For IPO, you need to lodge a prospectus, you need to find a sponsor, you need to find an underwriter, so it's a costly and very lengthy period, for a good reason, right? Because the underwriter is taking on the risk, right? So if we're compared to IPOs within this fundraising range, there's something wrong with the crowdfunding model, but I believe that the crowdfunding model is more efficient and a lot less costly as well, so that's one thing. The second thing is your relationship with the shareholders. If they are unhappy, what happens, right? The shareholders need to come into this understanding that venture capital investments is a highly risky and illiquid asset, right? So we will educate investors to say that, look, you should expect to hold on to these shares for the next 3 to 5 years, and there's a high likelihood that you will not get dividends, right? And you might also lose all of your money as well, right? To set expectations. Number 3 is your relationship with shareholders need to be dictated through your shareholder agreement, right? So when you launch an offer, you will have a shareholder agreement, or otherwise called SHA, right? And that SHA should basically determine what the relationship is in terms of if your shareholders, want to say something about the business, do they get information rights, do they get board rights, right? And if they want to sell their shares, do you have first right of refusal as an entity or the other shareholders, right? The last thing, sorry, just to add on, is under the current framework in Malaysia, investors are allowed to do secondary sales for 2 weeks every 6 months. So through the platform, they're able to offload some of their shares as well. Okay, so there is an exit mechanism. Good question. Next. There's a gentleman at the top of the stairs. Yes. So you will have many types of investors, okay? So the question was, can you turn your customers into investors, right? So I've seen two cases, and I'll talk about very different two asset classes. So Hard Rock Hotel in Florida, the equity-based crowdfunding, because they realized that there are some property investors, but also there are customers of Hard Rock Hotel, right, who want to have ownership of a destination that they love, they use, and they want to be associated with. So that's real estate. That's really turning your customers into an investor story. The other one was in UK. I've seen basically this was an online job portal for white-collar professionals, right? It's called Escape the City, I believe. They basically went to VCs and basically said that, look, instead of accepting a few $100,000, what we rather do is we already have an existing membership base of 2,000 or 3,000, so we're going to raise money from them, right? So it is a mechanism to allow customers to become your shareholders as well, if you choose to do so. Yes, please.
All right. Thank you for sharing. My name is Webster, and thanks for a while. Crowdfunding for the whole purpose of the set of part of your company being shared out to be invested by the masses is one awesome idea. And how would it compare with potentially offering it out with platforms like Kickstarter?
Good question. That's for you to decide, right? So if you thought, no, I'm serious, like, look, we're here to give you choice, right? So if you thought that you wanted to now expand your business, get shareholders, price your equity, price your business, then you should do equity-based crowdfunding, right? And it's probably more sector agnostic. So it could be a B2B business, it could be some data business, and so on. I still believe that reward-based, like, I won't say the name of the platform, but international platforms and so on, are great if it's a consumer-facing business, right? It's cool, it's innovative, there's virality, like, what was it, cool as cooler or something like that, right? Yeah, those are really good, yeah? So for me, we're just offering you choice, right? You could decide to do two in parallel, you could decide to do it in back-to-back, it's up to you, right? Yes, gentleman in the blue shirt. Sorry, my hearing is, I'm not as young as I look, actually.
Hi, I just want to know regarding the company structure, would there be any restructuring as into the entity itself after the successful crowdfund?
So any restructuring which is required should be best done before the offer, right? So if you need to change your Articles of Association, for example, to allow you to issue new shares, that needs to be done before. The only statutory requirements to do crowdfunding is that for Malaysia, you need to be a Malaysian corporate private company, right? So that's all. Otherwise, I don't really see any kind of restructuring will be required just because you did fundraising.
Does it change the structure into a hybrid of a public listed kind of, because there will be a mass holding?
So good point. I believe that in Malaysia that if you have more than 50 shareholders, then you need to become a public company, which means that it doesn't mean that you need to be listed on the stock exchange here. It means that you have different obligations like filing audited financial statements, right? So if you want to prevent that from happening, right, what you would do is you would configure an offer so you end up with a number of shareholders which is less than 50. So for minority investors, you bundle them up into a SPV. For strategic investors, they have direct ownership, right? So in the end, you could have 5,000 investors, only 2 strategic investors, but these 5,000 investors, for example, are bundled up into shareholding vehicles. So from your shareholder registry point of view, you only have 3 shareholders.
So basically, the Crowdonomics, you'll be one of the vehicles of trust to hold the remaining shares of all the minorities?
So that's a good regulatory question. We don't necessarily see ourselves as shareholding vehicle owners or representatives, but we will definitely offer the mechanism, right, to allow you to do that.
Is that, I mean, basically there's an opportunity for other companies, trust funds. I mean, you need to come in as to hold the minority shareholders' interests.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Malaysia-specific question. Besides being a Sdn Bhd, are there any other regulations that we have to learn or look out for if you're looking to crowdfund?
As it stands right now, the regulatory framework which has been announced to the public is what I showed you earlier. So it's up to you to make sure that the fundraising ceilings are capped. So you're not using equity-based crowdfunding platforms to raise more than 3 million ringgit during a 12-month span, right? It's also up to you to make sure that the financial disclosures, whether they're audited accounts and so on, are in right form and of quality, right? It's also up to you to make sure that the number of shareholders have not exceeded a certain cap, and you're still within the Sdn Bhd or the private limited form, right? So we're quite familiar with this space. So we've done regulatory analysis in close to 15 different countries, which are looking at this legislation and regulation. And I think that Malaysia has one of the most innovative and progressive, but also one of the most clear ones as well. So if you go to the Securities Commission website, if you go to the right-hand side, there's a little section which talks about updates, right? If you go to page 3, right, you'll see third document down, right? Response to the public consultation process. So there you could get the latest framework.
Thank you.
Just out of interest, how many entrepreneurs and startups in the audience? Be proud and raise your hand because you're going to change the world. Very good. Okay. How many investors? Cool. You're changing the world as well. Okay. How many people are thinking about launching their own crowdfunding platform? Good. Very good. Yeah. The industry can always use more quality, credible platforms. Good. Okay.
What stage of the company do you think is best for crowdfunding, like seed, pre-seed, growth?
It's up for you to decide. We are not gatekeepers. We curate the platform, meaning to say that we will give you enough advice to make sure that you're set up for success for your fundraising process. But it's not for me to say that, look, you're not worth it or you're great or whatever, right? So there are certain vetting that we will do, right? So me personally, as a person, as an entrepreneur, as a startup, I will always look at you and say how committed and dedicated you are, right? And then we could go into more tangible criteria like, have you already incorporated? Are you full-time? Do you at least have an MVP? Have you been around 6 months and so on, right? But for me, I'm sector and also stage agnostic. If you thought this was the right way for you to raise funds, power to you, and you should make that choice. Okay, thank you very much again.